There we are.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, sure.
Great.
And you can hear me?
Yeah, everything's great.
Great. So, I'm always a bit nervous, with the connection and all of that, but it seems to be working fine.
Good.
And there are people joining us. Yes.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah. And I just saw my mother-in-law checked in, so I have to behave. Um, all right. Thank you very much for joining me in this little project or live stream or series or whatever. Um, I had the idea about this for a while, and I did the first one last week, and so you're my second guest or whatever we should call you.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think it's a great idea, and thanks for inviting me.
sure thing. And the reason I invited you is also because what I would like to do with this is speak with, well, interesting or versatile singers with a lot of experience, both in performing and teaching and education and recording and whatever. So it's for my own sake too, but I guess there are a lot of people who are interested in listening to nerdy people talking about singing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I get questions all the time.
Yeah,
Um, and I remember I've done like live streams and I'll answer a question, and then 20 minutes later, someone will ask the same question again. So maybe
yeah,
because they joined in late, I don't know what it is, but I
yeah.
think there's certain things that you could keep saying them over and over again and people won't get tired of
No,
it.
yeah. And we have a lot of question actually for this stream too, and we'll just see whatever, and perhaps there will be questions in the comments, so we will try to keep an eye on that one too. But so what we're talking about is generally singing, and you sing.
I think so.
And yeah, you've been doing it for a while. I guess we're about the same age, but I can also guess that you've been singing for a pretty long time.
Yeah, I mean, I've been singing all my life, just to say, you know.
Yeah.
Professionally, I can't tell you exactly when that started.
Uh,
Maybe in my 20s.
yeah.
Um, but I've been singing since a little kid. I had a nice voice on pitch since, I don't know, since I was born, I guess, since I could talk.
Yeah.
So, like, teachers would ask me to be in the school play and musicals and stuff like that. In the choir, I was in my church choir. So, I mean, singing was just something that I always did. Um, and then I think I only started taking it seriously after the age of 20.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
But I mean that's usually a I'm not saying that you do it, but it's kind of a cliche answer. I've been singing all
Yeah.
my life, but I mean,
Yeah.
like you say, most people they start out with some teacher somewhere, or I don't know, music teacher, or church musician or whatever, noticing them. Do you remember, like as a kid, when someone said like, "Wait a minute, one more time, who sang that?" Or
Um,
situation like that, someone noticing you.
I can't remember like a specific time when I was really, really young because I've
Uh,
was doing it since like 4 or 5 years old, basically since I
yeah,
started school.
yeah,
Um, so I was really young. I can't remember those moments, but I do remember maybe in early high school when I joined the school choir. Um,
mm,
a really big moment for me was when the teacher, um, he basically, I guess, assigned to me to be like his second hand or something. So like he would split the
yeah,
group into two, and he would tell me like, here, take these. people and like work with them because I can't work with
Yeah.
everyone individually. I don't have the time.
Yeah.
So that was a moment in my head where I'm like, oh, okay, I guess he considers me to be the best person here. Mind you, there were like 10 people there, so
Yeah.
but no, it was a cool moment because it was like, I think also when you're given responsibility, and that wasn't a responsibility, we actually competed in like a national competition with that choir and won first place. So it was a big deal,
Yeah.
you know.
But
This was
this
in
was,
Greece, by the way.
yeah, I was about to ask. It was in Greece. And you were like in high school, so you were like
Mhm.
15, 16, something like that?
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of the people in the choir group just joined choir as an excuse to get out of lessons because
Yeah.
practice was, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. I
during,
certainly know.
yeah, and also because to compete in the national competitions, we went on a field trip for 3 days.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were like, I just want to skip school and go on a field trip. So we had a
Yeah.
few people that weren't the greatest, you know, they weren't
Yeah.
quite on tune, in tune, or
Mm.
they couldn't harmonize well because we had, you know, split parts. So we had
Yeah.
to deal with that, but he had a lot of patience and like how we started and how we ended was a completely different result. So
Yeah.
I think that was a big moment for me.
Like going from singing is fun to
Yeah.
I want to do this a lot.
Yeah, maybe. That wasn't exactly because, like I said, I was 15 or 16
Yeah.
and started seeing it a little more seriously after the age of 20. But that
Yeah.
was definitely a moment where I think I realized, oh, I'm actually good at this.
Yeah.
Um, but then after that, I didn't really sing too much. I sang at home. I sang, you know, in the shower, like the cliche.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
what actually got me back into music was playing piano and writing my own music. And for a few years, that was my goal. And then I just thought to myself, well, you can sing, so why not sing like the songs that you're writing? And I started singing again just as a whatever thing, you know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
certainly didn't expect. Yeah.
That would kind of be my next question. I mean, if you did play an instrument before that, or when did you start to play the piano?
Yeah, well, I'm self-taught, so if you ever actually ask me, I'm gonna be like, I don't know how to play piano, you know. Um, like the truth is I can read sheet music. I don't like it though at all because I am
Yeah.
self-taught. I'd rather play along to a song or look up the chords, stuff like that. Yeah, so I learned how to play by ear. I taught myself music theory and harmony by myself, by also asking friends, musician friends that I had at
Yeah.
the time. Um, but if actually piano is my very first memory, I guess, going back to when I was a child, that really stood out to me. Um, I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I was with my dad driving home from his work or school, I don't remember exactly. And I saw this like big music store. I think it might have been a Guitar Center, and
Mm.
I started begging him to go in there. Um, and my dad was like, "Yeah, okay, fine, we can go in, but you know,
Yeah.
you're not buying anything." Um, so we walk in, and I don't know what it was, because up until that moment, I hadn't had any like interaction with a musical instrument. So I didn't know what I was looking for. I just walked in, and for some reason, I went straight to the pianos and the keyboards and all that. And then an associate came by, and he's like, "Do you need any help?" Blah 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 blah. One thing led to another. He shows us this like pretty cheap basic Yamaha that was like $200 or $300. And then I begged my dad, Dad, please, you know. Um, and he got it for me. So much for we're not buying anything.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so I think looking back at that moment as an adult, I think it was just like I had a general love for music. Because if you ask me right now, like, do you love playing the piano? No, not necessarily. But I do
Uh,
love I'm like what it stands for. So like It's musical
It,
expression, so I love all instruments. I love singing because of that, you know.
yeah, because I have this hobby theory that playing an instrument really improves your singing, and that the
Oh,
voice kind of is secondary to the musical learning, and
yeah,
like you can do whatever kind of vocal acrobatic exercises you want, but if you don't have the musicality,
hmm,
it's kind of a gun without ammo.
yeah, for sure. Also, one thing I've noticed with myself, and I've seen with other singers, not necessarily singers, they could be
Yeah,
instrumentalists that also sing. When you're playing and singing at the same time, if you're able to do so,
yeah,
there's a very low chance that you're going to be pitchy in your singing
yeah, yeah,
because voice just tunes in with that. Whereas if someone else is playing and you're just singing, you have to kind of like listen, make sure you hear properly to be
yeah.
able to follow. So I find that very interesting how that happens.
I actually do that a bit with some students, because I also teach at a school where, for the courses you need the sheet music and to be able to read it. So with all the singers, instead of, agonizingly trying to read the music and sing it, I let them play the piano. So they play the melody. And then after a while, when they start to sing along, I just lower the volume, but they still play the keys, and they
Right.
sing it so much better. But it just, the almost just using their eyesight to watch the keys, they can sing, and
Right.
just moving their fingers, because that's, it connects in a way.
Yeah.
And that connection, between the brain and the ear and the voice, I think that's the most essential thing.
Hmm.
To be able to hear a pitch in your
Yeah,
head
for sure.
and then reproduce it, not just
Yeah,
open your mouth and
obviously.
hope that whatever comes out is, going to be in pitch.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I think I'm happy to not have that obstacle, but
Yeah,
I've had students or I've met people that had issues when they were starting out, and they've managed to improve greatly over the years. And I commend them for that because I think if I would have naturally not been on pitch, I probably wouldn't be singing today. I wouldn't care for it, you know, because it was just one
no,
of those things that I was naturally good at, and I said, okay, I might as well do it. But I've met people that have this burning desire to sing, and they don't care that they're off pitch. They're like, no, I'm going to learn how to sing. I'm going to do it. And I'm like, wow, okay. Great for
yeah.
you, you know?
I sometimes say that it's easy to teach someone how to use their voice, but it's not easy to teach musicality.
No, not at all. Which is another reason too, if I get a student that has a severe like tonal issue, I tell them right away, and I tell them that maybe I'm not the right person for you. This is what I would recommend because I can teach it, but it's not my thing. I'd rather work with someone that is already a little bit advanced and I can just give them the tools to go to the next level.
Mm.
So I think you need to go to music school for that and take ear training courses and all that stuff if you have that issue.
And and that's very commendable, because some people just, all right, and
Right.
then they spend, hour after hour trying to get this poor person who can't imagine pitches to do acrobatic vocal stuff that they can never be able to use in a musical content if they don't,
Yeah.
understand the music. And just, okay, pay me and I will pain you through all of these
Please.
exercises.
Yeah. I, I've witnessed that firsthand, which is a big reason why I just decided to stay away from music schools and just teach myself.
Yeah,
Because my former, like my actual training, musical training, is
yeah,
just 2 years of classical singing, and that's it.
yeah,
Um, and it was fine. It was cool, you know, like I'm thankful I did it because it did teach me the basics of singing, like to use my diaphragm and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I realized like that wasn't for me. I didn't care to sing opera. I didn't care for a career in like the lyrical opera sing. And there were not really any teachers or degrees for a modern style of singing, much less like rock or metal with like distortion and all that stuff. So
Mm.
I just also it was really expensive, so I'm just like, whatever. I don't need this anymore. I I got
Yeah.
what I needed from it, you know, but my 2 years of being there, I saw a lot of that. So like my teacher maybe had like 10 to 15 students, and I could see that not every student was on the same level, but her approach to it was the same. And I think a lot of teachers don't have the heart, or they need the money, of course, but to tell someone that like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be singing, or maybe take it easy. So like they encourage
Mhm.
that. And the more I would see that, the more I'd just be like, okay, I need to leave because not because I'm the greatest in the world, but there needs to be some kind of class. You can't
Yeah.
take 15 people, one is at level 0, the other's at level 5, the other's at level 11, and put them all together. That just doesn't make sense, you know?
No. I spoke to one of my old piano teachers from the Academy of Music. It was a couple of years ago, but he said that nowadays everyone gets in and everyone get their exam, like in a bad way, you know, because the school
Yeah,
gets paid for every exam. They don't get
exactly.
paid for, you know, this part,
Yeah,
and they need students, so everyone gets in and
yeah,
everyone gets out. He was
exactly.
probably exaggerating a bit, but you know,
I
he's been working there for like 40 years, so he could tell the difference.
Yeah, no, I totally believe that. And that sort of happened while I was there as well. Like my first year there, my tuition was very low because I wasn't in a class. It was like my first year. And
Yeah.
then I gave my exam and I got into like an advanced class. And then my tuition like doubled. And I knew I only needed like 2 or 3 more years to get a degree, an actual degree in like classical singing. But then I
Yeah.
knew you paid for the exam as well, and I knew the price would be going up every year. And I just, no. I was like,
What was this at the same time when you started to do the harsh vocals?
no, this was around the age of 20 or so.
All right. Yeah.
Um, I only started screaming when I was 25, 26. So a little bit before joining the agonist.
Yeah. And how was the? I mean, the first baby steps of the harsh vocals and screamings.
Just trying stuff, really, just
Yeah.
experimenting. Like a lot of people, and now there are a lot of tutorials and stuff out there for you to check out to learn.
Yeah.
But back then, there wasn't much. There certainly weren't people teaching this. Like I think
Mm.
the Melissa Cross DVDs, End of Screaming,
Yeah.
was kind of came out that around that time. Wasn't that
I
big
think it
yet.
was like 2013, 14, or maybe
Uh,
earlier.
it was a little earlier, but it did take some time
Yeah.
to grow, you know.
Yeah.
Um, by the way, I see a lot of my friends tuning in, so I just want to say quick
All
hi.
right. Yeah. Yeah. We need to keep an eye there, so we say hi to
Yeah.
people.
So where was I going with this? Yes, there wasn't a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of
Yeah.
information.
Yeah. You have to teach yourself and just.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I didn't know what I was doing, and I think if you ask a lot of people, professional vocalists that do it on stage, they didn't know what they were doing when they first started as well. So, um, I think through imitation,
Yeah.
experimenting, a lot of people will tell you try to make funny, weird noises because that's all you can do, and then just listen to your body, basically, because your body will tell you if you're doing something right or wrong. And this goes with singing as well.
Yeah.
Like being self-taught, I never had someone, aside from classical singing, of course, but I never had someone to tell me, are you, using your chest voice the right way? Are you using distortion the right way? Are you belting the proper way? Are you screaming? No one ever told me these things. So I just listened to myself. Like if I did something and then I woke up the next day and my voice was like this, okay, maybe I didn't do the right thing, you know?
But I
Yeah.
mean, the process of learning and listening to your body, I mean, that must have been kind of incorporated into you from the early choir days. You know, I do this and it feels like this, and this is the sound that comes out. I mean, if you're taught that way of working or improving, then you can use it on, you know, jazz singing, death metal growling, or power metal, Kai Hansen fucking
Yeah.
screams, whatever. I mean, it's a way of working.
Yeah, for sure. And I had that, I guess, work ethic ingrained in
Yeah,
me since being a young kid. That was also another reason I was very anxious to leave Greece because I felt like, not to insult anyone, but I think rhythm in Greece is a lot slower. There's a big like, oh, well, why do this today when you can do it tomorrow,
yeah,
mentality. Which is fine, and I love it. And I actually miss Greece sometimes because I'm like, man, I just want to go and chill and like relax.
yeah,
But I knew that if I wanted to take the next step and meet similar-minded people, I had to leave. I had to be around an environment where everything goes fast. And
yeah.
especially with
Like,
music. Yeah.
like going from midweight to heavyweight boxing or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Because
Level up a bit.
for sure. Because I think, and a lot of my friends too in Greece, they're exceptional musicians and a lot of talent and all that. But I think because they are there, and I think if I still would have been there, that does take a little bit of toll on your career. It's hard. It's hard, whereas being in the States, it's like, well, you're in the United States. It's the best country for music in terms of like, you know,
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
on the charts, number one is here. So, I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, when you started out doing the harsh vocals, and when I mean, you started out a bit before you moved to the States and joined the Agonist. But when I mean, we talked about the moment when you were like 15, when you got to have some responsibility in the choir. But when did you realize that these funny noises that I'm making, these angry, I mean, oh, I can
That's
use
pretty
this
good.
in. Thank you. I can use this in music for real. When did you like? I mean, when did someone you trusted tell you that
Oh,
this is actually good?
for me, it was the other way around, actually, because I started doing it and then I joined the Agonist, and I still wasn't where I had to be when I joined that band. And um, like, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what they were thinking when they hired me because I I hadn't been doing it for a long time. It was like maybe 6 months, and I wasn't nowhere near as good as I am today. But I think they saw my singing and my songwriting, and that was like the main focus for them. And they were kind of like, well, you know what? If she got this good in this stuff and she just started screaming, she can get good at that as well, with time. So for me, it was the other way around. It wasn't like, oh, here I am at home experimenting, taking my time, trying to learn how to grow this thing. No, it was like, you have to learn how to do this now because you have an album to write and you have tours to do and all that. And I can't tell you exactly how it happened. It just like with touring, with doing it all the time, with songwriting, it just got better and better.
So you could say you had to rise to the occasion. You had to, you know,
Yeah,
I mean, you accepted and joined the band, and then fuck, I need to learn this,
yeah,
and that's where the
basically.
work ethic
Yeah.
gets in. So uh, during this time, did you? I mean, when you were experimenting, adapting, or even afterwards, have you ever had some serious voice trouble? I'm not talking about, oh, my voice isn't. I feel a bit off today, but I mean serious problems.
I have blown out my voice a few times, and by
Yeah,
blown out I mean just like used it too much. So you wake up, like I said, the next day and it's
yeah,
like really hoarse. Um, that's happened once with recording, and it was while we were recording the first album, I Have Providence, and it didn't happen from screaming, surprisingly. It happened with
yeah,
singing. Back then I didn't know how a recording process for a full album should be. A lot of people like splitting the singing, doing all the singing first and then all the screaming.
yeah,
I started out that way, but Orphans, for example, our last album, I did it
yeah,
song by song. So like I did all the singing in a song, and then the same day I did all the screaming in that song, and then the song was done. Um, but back then, so I have Providence, I didn't know we did all the singing first, and for some stupid reason, we decided to do all like the pushed chest voice choruses in the same day. So
yeah.
I was pushing my chest voice as high as it could go for like 5 to 6 hours. And then I wake up the next day and I'm talking like this, you know. And I couldn't record for like 2 days. I had to like, drink tea and rest and drink water and wait it out.
Yeah.
So that was one moment. And then it's happened sort of on tour where maybe like we didn't have the best sound, so I couldn't hear myself, so I pushed a little too much, and then I woke up the next day and it was pretty bad. But it's
Mm.
never happened to that extent where like I'm off
Oh,
for 3 days. Um, yeah, so that's happened on tour. And then of course
mm.
getting really, really sick, which affects
Yeah,
the voice as well, but that's
yeah,
that's irrelevant to technique.
yeah. But not like, surgery or, we're not talking that
Oh no,
level. No,
no,
no.
no. I was worried like in 2018
Yeah,
or end of 2017. I went to a doctor to put a camera down my throat, and
yeah.
he said everything looks fine. You have nothing. So no.
Yeah, I actually done that a couple of times too. Because I have a great job. They have me go check my ears and my throat like every third year or whatever. But I had serious problems for a tour in like 2016. And sometimes when you sing and you can't really tell what it is, but something's not right. Sometimes you can feel like, okay, I'm cold or I'm swollen or whatever. But I couldn't really figure out what it was, and I pushed and I pushed because things weren't working like it should, and then like months after, and I had they checked everything's fine, no problems, not, but I felt like I was being like strangled by a small
Hmm.
guy with soft hands, like almost trying to. And I realized, a doctor eventually found out it was like my saliva glands that were
Oh,
swollen. And he said,
wow.
well, they will, it will ease out in a couple of months. It's natural. But
Hmm.
when you have this pressure here and you can't really tell what it is, I was so damn worried.
Yeah.
Okay, I could be a plumber instead, or I mean, what should I do with my life? Kind of angsty level of, so yeah,
Yeah.
that sucks. Yeah. Um, and talking about that, we had some questions earlier about the sensation of screaming in the
Hmm.
throat and about the difference between regular singing and screaming. So I don't know if it's a question or a topic or whatever, but I, for once, and I I will bow down to your superior knowledge about this. I do some occasional screaming stuff, but I can feel that I can get tired in my harsh voice,
Hmm.
but after a couple of songs. But I can still do, everything else is still in place, but I get tired in the harsh voice.
Right. Well, I mean, that might just be because you don't do it every single day. Um,
Might be.
so yeah, so like to break down a few, I guess, screaming myths, the
Yeah.
the number one thing that I see in like tutorials, and it just kind of pisses me off, is when people say, "Oh, screaming shouldn't, I mean, it shouldn't hurt, so that's correct, but they're like, it should feel like nothing. And when I see people say that, it just like, it pisses me off so much because it's like, I know that they're lying out of their teeth because it does not feel like nothing.
Yeah.
And it certainly wasn't like that when they started screaming. It wasn't like that for me. I'm sure it wasn't like that for anyone. Of course you feel something. You feel something when
Yeah.
you talk. You feel something when you sing. You're not going to feel something when you scream. Like, come on.
Yeah.
And it kind of tickles, especially if you haven't ever done anything like this in your life. It might tickle to the point where you get into a coughing fit, you know?
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It just means that you're using something in here that you've never used before and your body is reacting to it. So it's like, imagine
Yeah.
you, yeah, imagine like you've never worked out a day in your life and you go to the gym and you start lifting all these weights. You're going to wake up the next day and your body's going to be in pain. You're going to be so sore. Not because
Yeah.
you did anything wrong, just because it's new.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of people telling other people that screaming, when done correctly, doesn't hurt or you don't feel a thing, that like, um, I guess navigates them towards the wrong path to the point where they might be doing something right, but because it feels a little itchy or scratchy, they're like, oh, this must be wrong. And then they stop.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the number one thing with screaming. Of course, you feel something. So, like I
Yeah,
said,
and there's a difference between, fatigue or getting a bit tired and pain,
exactly.
because pain should mostly be avoided. But yeah, like you said, it's when you do something new, it feels weird. I mean, if you were to start singing classical music, it will feel weird too,
Of
because you will
course.
use all the hollow parts of everything and it
Yeah.
will resonate everywhere, and you will, oh God, how am I sounding at the moment? And same with the
Yeah.
screaming.
Yeah.
So I
Like,
get, yeah, for people who have been doing it for 15 years, yeah, I don't feel anything, but
right. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, it's just like consistency, really. Like, if I don't scream for like a month and then I try screaming again, of course I'm gonna feel scratchy and I'm gonna cough and all that. Whereas like
Mm.
if I do it every single day or if I'm on tour, I can just wake up and scream.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people don't realize that, and like people trying to learn, they might not be practicing as often. So it's like if it's something you're trying once a week, well, don't expect any results anytime soon, you know. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to do it every single day, but try and be consistent in what
Yeah.
you're attempting. And I think like the biggest thing that I said, listen to your body. So basically, let's say you're a total beginner and you're sitting there and you're going whatever and like trying stuff. The second it starts feeling like a little too much, just stop and try it again the next day. It's that simple,
Mm.
you know.
Because how I feel is like when I can mostly do all this, the lower stuff. I have more problems with doing the high kind of, to generalize. I'm more comfortable with the Dimmu Borgir stuff, and the at the gate stuff is harder. But the low ones, I feel like I'm pushing, you know, a lot, but still keeping things super open.
Hmm. I
And
mean,
then the switch to, oh, so,
yeah.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on everyone's technique. For
Yeah,
myself, not a lot changes from my lows to my highs. Like my mouth position, um, and how much I push. Definitely push a lot less in the highs. So
yeah,
like, but just to see an example, like if you go like that's like a mid, I guess. But then if I
yeah,
open my mouth, you'll see how it'll go like just because I
yeah,
open my mouth a lot. So
yeah,
I think with screaming, it's really important to realize that your mouth position and what your jaw is doing and everything is really important too.
yeah. Because I have some students that work both with the harsh vocals and the clean stuff, and that's a thing that's, when you do, I don't know, I need to come up with a graduate. The blood's on the wall. If you do that, you need to have kind of excessive jaw movements, and you have to
Get to
articulate
the words.
really. Yeah, you have to, to get the words sounding. And by the way, when I listen to your stuff, you can always hear every single word.
Thank you.
So
Um,
congratulations. But I mean the transit, because when most these singers, when they switch to normal singing, they
mhm.
keep the same excessive jaw movements and they articulate like this, and then
Yeah.
things are and they get the voice cracks and all of that.
Yeah, okay, so going to the screaming thing and like pronouncing things properly, um, I think that's not something that a lot of people don't even think about. That's something that I really care about because like unless you're listening to something like Cannibal Corpse, where it's like, okay, it's part of the style for it to be like,
Yeah,
I don't understand a
yeah,
word, that's fine. But
yeah,
if you're screaming like in a hardcore way or like like screaming like a pushed scream, I think it's
yeah,
important that the lyrics are made out. So like one thing I would recommend is don't care too much about having your scream tone all the time. So like a lot of people mix in a little bit of their real voice in there, so you hear a little bit of a note when you're screaming.
yeah.
So if you pay attention to that sensation when you are pronouncing, so like that split second that your mouth changes before you open it up to go into a scream again,
Mhm.
it's okay to let go of the scream tone and then bring it back, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
instead of
yeah,
being blah blah like that monotonous thing that you can't hear, you're adding a little bit of something there, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure. But I mean, what I personally enjoy most is to hear the really harsh stuff with just a little bit of tone in it. I mean, like Phil Anselmo or whatever. That's like, uh, for me personally. But I think that's also the hardest thing, I guess, to master, to find that balance between the
Yeah.
harsh and tone.
Yeah, it's not easy. And I think one of the
Uh,
hardest things too are like pitched screams, like hitting a specific note, that you want to
yeah,
hit. So it's like, because you can't do that all the time. And then there's bands that create melodies with screams, and you're gonna have to do that every single night. Um,
yeah.
yeah, it's not easy.
That's one thing to. I mean, and that's what when you record stuff. I mean, if it's just like a guest appearance or something that I will never ever be asked to do live, I can do like whatever. But I always try to keep in the back of my mind, if I record something, like, okay, I'm going to do this live. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think that's also why for myself, when I was recording Orphans, I decided to do it song by song instead of do all the singing first, then all the screaming.
Yeah,
Because then I'm like, okay, this is what I'm gonna have to do live. I'm gonna have to go from one to the next. So if I
yeah,
can't do that within the same day, how am I gonna do it in a live scenario?
yeah. I don't remember the song, but I was listening to a lot of the Agonist stuff today when I had a walk, just to prepare. I can't for my life remember what song it is, but in the beginning there was like very fast transitions between guttural stuff to and then the chorus, it was like a two-part harmony uh, with clean vocals. Can't for my life remember the name of the song because I didn't check my phone at the time. But it got me thinking about what's the hardest transitions? Is it going from gutturals to clean, or from clean to the high screams, or is there one of those transitions that is harder than the others?
No, I mean, this is one question that I will never understand in my life.
Yeah,
Um, and a lot of people say that, like, how do you go from one voice to the other?
yeah,
Whereas for me, it's like, how do you do each voice individually? Because if you can do each voice individually, why would it be difficult to go from one to the other?
Yeah.
I never understood that. Um, I think the hardest thing maybe is in a live scenario, because you're pushing more and you're moving around.
Yeah.
Um, the hardest thing might be to like balance that out to make sure you're not out of breath, because if you are out of breath, then good luck doing any of this stuff. Like you can't sing if you're like, you know.
Yeah.
um, but going, I don't know, like I don't think like screaming and then going into a singing part is difficult. I think maybe going from like a super high note to a super low note
Yeah.
might be difficult. You know, like you're
Yeah.
not gonna go ah, and then whoa. That
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
but
Sure.
but going from screaming to singing, I don't know. That always felt relatively easy to me, so I don't know.
But so that if that's easy, then perhaps it's also easy to choose. I mean, when you like compose stuff, like this is fry, this part will be growling, this part will be clean, or because you don't feel the physical boundaries. You don't have
Yeah.
to, oh, I can't do that one, that part, this or that.
Right. Yeah. I don't really care about like what you just said. I think the only thing that I take into consideration when I'm songwriting is making sure I have enough breath for a vocally demanding like singing part.
Yeah.
So if it's like a pushed um like okay, so let me get a little technical here, but you'll know what I'm talking about. I think this is the case for most singers. You have this part in your voice, kind of where your chest voice ends and where your mixed voice begins. Those like that passage, I guess, where things are
Yeah.
really difficult. And once you're past that, like singing super high notes, at least for me, is super easy. But if
Yeah.
I'm in that sort of territory, that in between where my voice doesn't know, should I do a chest voice? Should I do a mixed voice? Depends on the day. Um, I have sometimes choruses that are right there.
Yeah.
And so when I'm songwriting and I know I have a chorus like that, because I'm still going to write the chorus like that because it's the best melody for the
Melody.
song.
Yeah. Melody
Yeah,
first. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't care if it's difficult on me. I'll figure it out. The only thing I will make sure is that I have enough time to take a breath before that part comes in. So like if I'm writing a song, I'm not gonna have it go like blah 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 like nonstop when till the chorus hits. I'm gonna make sure I take a breath somewhere because
Yeah.
otherwise I'm not gonna be able to sing that chorus. So
Yeah.
that's the only really thing that I take into consideration.
Yeah. You kind of pinpointed one of the really hard. I mean, the stuff that most students have the hardest time with. It's just that area where your voice can do both. Like, I mean, we're terminology, blah blah blah, but either chest voice or full vocal fold mass or mixed or little vocal
Mhm.
fold mass or whatever. I mean, because when you get low enough, there's no choice because it will be ridiculous. And the same with if you go high enough, it will just be yelling.
Yeah,
There's nothing nice with the sound at all. But
yeah,
the area, like, I mean, I think I have an octave where I can use both, and that's
right.
the hardest part, just like you
Hmm.
said, and that's when planning needs to be done, I
Exactly.
guess, because most students that have this problem, they just, and this is just what I'm thinking, they just open their mouth and just sing the melody. They don't imagine what it is they are supposed to be doing.
Right.
I mean, uh, and the hard part is that, or the boring part is, this is the hardest thing about singing. Well, then you have to practice this the most.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I agree. I think,
Yeah, okay, fine, bye, we're done. That's it.
I mean, uh, no, no, you're right. I just I'm not a person that really practices in the like general sense of
Yeah,
practice. Like I'm not gonna take a chorus and do it again and again and again
yeah,
until I get it right. I don't do that. I like you said, I maybe plan it in advance and I record it. And if I can record it and I do it the right way, then I listen back to it. And then I think there's something in me that just does it instinctively afterwards. So an example as to like why I'm doing a lot of covers. I'm not doing covers to do covers. I mean, that's great, obviously, but like that's been something I've been doing for many years. That's how I
mm,
practice. I practice by recording. So I think the only
yeah,
difference right now is like I'm making the extra effort to like mix it and put a video and put it out there. But I've been doing this for years. I'll find like an instrumental and I'll sit exactly where I am. I'll take this microphone right here
yeah,
and I do this sitting down and I'll record. And that's my
yeah.
practice. And a lot of people will tell you like, oh, you're not supposed to sit down. Well, I sit down. It's not ideal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, if you can do it sitting down, you can do it standing up, first of all.
yeah,
And second of all, the reason I sit down is because I'm engineering, like self-engineering too. So I can't be standing up and leaning over the keyboard every time to like, you know.
no. I have the same situation here because actually also sit like exactly
Yeah,
here. I record and I have my interface here. And
yeah,
if I was supposed to, get over here and then down, every time I was supposed to do a new take, I mean, if you
yeah.
add 2 seconds or 3 seconds to every take I record, I mean, eventually it adds up to,
Oh, of course.
ah,
I mean, you're
but I
probably
mean,
burning more calories, but you're wasting a lot of time. So,
yeah. And just like you said, when I teach, I sit down and I play the piano most of the time, and I sing when I teach, and I
yeah.
sit down when I record. I mean, of course, I can stand up and sing, but that's a very good quote. If you can do it sitting down, you can do it standing up. And also, I feel like if you sit down and do like the Stevie Wonder moves, then
Yeah.
you won't be able to push too much because if you do, you will feel the strain in the
Hmm.
stomach. So
Yeah.
so I also enjoy sitting down.
For sure. And I have this one thing that I do when something is really difficult and I know that I need, like, could probably do it better if I'm standing up. I'll do this like half sitting down, standing up. So what I'll do, like right now I'm sitting down like normal. I'll like
Mm.
get up on my knees. So I'm on
Yeah,
my knees and I'll do this. So it's like, well, I'm kind of standing up, you know,
yeah,
and I'll do the take if I have to, you know.
yeah. But I mean, it's the the hardest part I feel about self-engineering is that there is no one here in this room to tell me to stop and take a break. And if you
Right.
have like a work ethic that I need to finish,
Yeah.
that's one of the most important lessons I've learned since I started to record myself. That no, you don't have to finish today. You can
Yeah.
leave in the middle of a session. It's okay.
Yeah. It really is. It really is. I know exactly what you mean. I started like putting limitations on myself because of that. So
Yeah,
like for example, like when I record, I like to just record. Nothing else. Like I don't like editing. I don't like choosing my takes, like what my
yeah,
final take would be for the song. I like doing
yeah,
that afterwards. So because I'm a perfectionist, I would do so many takes. I'd have like 10 to 15 takes of each part. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm spending more time choosing my takes than
yeah,
it took me to sing the takes. So I like kind of implemented a rule on myself where it's like, you're going to do 5 to 6 takes for each part maximum. And if they're not good, you're going to delete them and do another new 5 or 6. But you're not going to fill up your project with a bunch of takes that you can't choose afterwards. Um, so that was rule number one. And then rule number 2 is, like you said, if hours are going by and you're not done, just continue the next day. And funny story, actually, I did this cover back in January. I don't remember the song. I did it back in January, and then I was gone. I went to Greece, I went to Montreal, whatever, and then I came back home in March, and I opened up the session, and it was missing stuff. Like, I didn't finish it, and I just continued recording. So there was like a gap of 2 months there, and
Yeah.
it honestly sounded like it could have been the same day. So,
Yeah.
like, when you know what you're doing and your voice is seasoned and all that, it doesn't matter. Like, I know some people are like, oh, I have to record on the same day so it sounds the same. Not really, you know.
No, and I mean, choosing takes is probably the most angsty thing that ever happened to me. It's the worst part, and it's gone to lengths that, you know, I sometimes I tell the producer, if I mean I just started with a project with an American guy, and I told him I will send you 4 versions because I know I record the entire song 4 times, and you will choose the takes, because, you know, otherwise, you know, especially if you work with, you know, picky people, you know, they would, well, this word here, could you get more, sound more sad, or, you know, and it's, you know, it makes me crazy. And this, I have all the this one, I did exactly the same thing, the Cantis album with Tony, and he's also, you know, a perfectionist, like, but you know, in a good way. He pushes me, but that album could have been sounded completely different, just because every song I recorded like 4 or 5 times. So depending on like this verse and this chorus or whatever, it could have sounded very different. And that's because I hate choosing takes. I hate it.
Yeah, I don't love it either, because sometimes I just don't know which direction to take. Like, I might have a verse where it's like one approach was like more breathy or whatever, the other one was more of a mixed voice or whatever, different approaches, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know what I want for this part, you know. So it can be tedious in that sense, but I do know it's a necessary evil, and I do it because and the fact that, like, because I do that, and I could literally take like 2 words from one take and 1 word from the other. And newsflash, that's what everyone does. That's what producers do. It's not cheating. You're trying to get the best of the best. And I've been in a lot of studios, professional studios, to know that that's how it's done. So that's what I do. And but what's beautiful about afterwards is that when you get the best of the best, you don't really have to edit it. Like I know some people like use a lot of auto-tune or whatever, pitch correction, and it is necessary, especially for backing vocals. Like, if you have like a huge backing vocal arrangement, you have to tune those vocals. They can't just be all over the place.
If you have 30 voices being just a little bit out of tune, you know, it will sound like
which was fine in like the 70s and the 80s, but music has changed. So I'm not against tuning vocals, but I do like keeping the main vocal as natural and as intact as possible. So when you choose your takes and you get the best takes, there's been songs where I didn't even edit anything. I'm like, this is it. This is what I did, you know?
And that's an important thing I sometimes say when you discuss. I mean, we're not going to open the Pandora box of autotune discussion right now, but, you know, I mean, it's not the singers that use autotune, it's the producers.
Sure, it is.
Mostly.
But I think it is up to the singer to approve or disapprove too. And I've met some singers that are just like, wow, I can't believe I sound so good. And it's like, nah.
Yeah. But I mean, one good thing about that, I used it for one thing I did. I had to fill in on short notice, and I recorded all the stuff, and I auto-tuned it, you know, and I put so much compression on it, and it sounded amazing, and, you know, everything was too perfect. But then I listened to it like over and over, and that was a version that got stuck in my head, and the version that hopefully came out of my mouth whenever I. So it was like a help to imagine the best possible version. But I have some questions that I would like to ask before we kind of wrap it up. We're closing in on an hour. I'm not, like this, but what's the best thing about your voice?
Best thing about my voice?
Yeah. What do you like most about your voice?
Like naturally, or just like that I have?
I don't know. Answer whatever you like. It's a stupid question, but
I don't know. I guess I like the versatility, but not the versatility in like vocal techniques, because I think in this day and age, a lot of people can sing and scream. It's becoming this very common thing that a lot of people can do. Which, by the way, there isn't just singing and screaming. It's not just harsh and cleans. Like, a lot of my singing is unclean, But the versatility in emotions, I think. I think one thing that I'm very like stubborn about and is really important to me is being to emulate different emotions, and that means like using different colors and tones with your voice, different dynamics and stuff like that. And I think that's one thing I'm really good at. If you look at like my vocal, like raw as it is without any compression or effects, it's ridiculous, because it's like one instance my voice might be super loud and almost peaking, and then like the next split second it might be this like quiet, really fragile thing. So it's like, I think that's something I take pride in, because that's something I've worked at. No one's born able to do this. And I think that's the most important thing to me about singing. It's not just about singing the right notes, or, hey, look at me, I can scream and I can hit these high notes and these low notes. Like, yeah, that's impressive, but like, where's like the emotional attachment to what you're doing? So I think that's something I care about, and because I care about it and I've practiced it, I do it quite well.
Yeah, I totally agree, because with and I guess it ties up to with what you said about practicing by doing covers, because when you look at the stuff you do that you have on your channel, it's Epica, Ghostbusters, and boom. I mean, and not like you said, not just the versatility in screaming, but the musicality of your singing, and I guess that comes from doing covers in many different genres.
For sure, and it's
like
also
being like being musically adapt and adapting musically to the music that you're actually singing at the moment.
Yeah, and it's about like taking inspiration from the original, but doing it in your own way too. So like, I may be able to do a bunch of these different voices, but I think at the end of the day, I still sound like me. I'm not trying to sound like the original singer. I'm just emulating, I guess, their inflection and their emotion and their take on it, but with my own voice. And I think that's another important thing to note, because I think a lot of people out there have like their number one influence, and you can hear it in their voice. They're like, which is impressive. A lot of people love it. They're like, oh my God, this guy sounds just like Bruce Dickinson. But is that really an accomplishment? Like, we already have Bruce Dickinson. We don't need Bruce Dickinson number 2, I would rather be like, sorry. I emulates Bruce Dickinson in a fantastic way, but with his own tone and his own color.
Yeah, and that's one of my, I guess it's one of the things I say the most. Like, if you sing an Iron Maiden song, you shouldn't hear Bruce Dickinson in your mind, because then your voice will try to sound like Bruce, and you don't have the same body.
Yeah.
So you need to hear your own voice, and not because. And whatever, if you sing a Metallica song, you can't hear James Hetfield, or if you can't hear Danny Filth if you're doing a Cradle of Filth song. You have to hear yourself doing it, and you have
Yeah,
to be able to imagine your own voice, because otherwise you will just build up strain.
right.
And every single note, if I hear Bruce Dickinson, it won't sound like Bruce, and every single note will be like I will feel like I was making a mistake,
Yeah.
because it doesn't sound like I imagine. So I will feel like a failure every single second.
Yeah, that must not be great. But
No.
that to add to that, I think a lot of people don't even know what their real voice is. Um, when I first started singing, like a little bit more as a teenager, not when I first started singing, but like
Uh,
it was around the time when Evanescence came out. I was listening to Evanescence nonstop, and I swear to God, I sounded like Amy Lee number two. To the point where like I was in studio one day and I was playing piano and singing Bring Me to Life, and
mm,
a guy walked in and he thought it was like a live, he didn't see me, he just heard from like the
yeah,
studio room and thought it was like a live recording of it. And it was, but I didn't like that. I didn't think that was a compliment because it's like, I want to sound like me. And that took
yeah,
some time. But all this to say, I don't think a lot of people find their natural voice. Um, and I see it a lot with my students. I have had students, so you're going to get a kick out of this. I have had students where their speaking voice is like high. So like a male student, for example, and he's talking kind of where I'm talking, which is really high for a
yeah,
male voice. And then
yeah.
he
That
goes
was
to
pretty
sing.
high.
Yeah. And then he goes to sing and it's like, I'm like, what are you doing? And then he tells me he can't sing high notes. I'm like, but you're singing them when you're talking to me. What do you mean you can't sing them?
Yeah,
Um, so the reason this was happening was because all of his musical influences have deeper voices.
yeah,
So he was trying to emulate that. But A, it's not for you, and B, to go low and hit lower notes, you don't have to pretend like you're Count Dracula. You don't have to do
no,
this. Like keep
no,
that brightness in your voice. Go like this. Don't go.
yeah.
That sounds like shit. So, I all this to say, I think a lot of people aren't capable sometimes of finding their own true voice, and I think that's something that I'm really like anal about. Like,
Yeah.
you need to figure this out if you want to be a
I,
good singer.
I sometimes say that you need to be your own favorite singer. You
Yeah,
need to hear yourself, and you
yeah,
need to like your own voice, because if you don't like your own voice, you can never expect anyone else to do it.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
So, I mean, we need to be a bit narcissistic, egomaniac. I mean, in a up to a certain level, of course, but we need to enjoy to listen to ourselves.
Well,
I,
yeah, and
I
I mean, I think singing, like the number one thing you need for singing, it's all here, so you need confidence. You
yeah,
need to know what you're doing is good. And knowing that you're good at something isn't exactly the same as being a
no,
narcissist. Um, because like, yeah, I think you can tell yourself, I'm really good at what I do, but at the
yeah,
same time also tell yourself, but I can be better.
yeah,
So find that balance where it's like you're not too hard on yourself. Like I'm absolute crap. I don't know what I'm doing. I suck. But also don't be like I'm the best in the world. So
no,
yeah.
yeah, and that balance is more like a psychological thing. So it's
For
like
sure.
another layer of important stuff for a singer.
Yeah.
Because the bad confidence and bad teachers and mean people can, just like pull down even the greatest of singers. So
Yeah.
I guess like a teacher, you need to be like I also feel like I have to enjoy my students' voices, because I want to hear great voices, and that's what I would like to find, and I would like to help them explore and find their own great voice so that I can hear it,
Exactly.
if it makes sense.
Oh, it makes total sense. And that's honestly the very, very first thing I do with a new student, is just listen to their voice. And I can kind of always tell. Like, I know your speaking voice isn't exactly the same as your
Huh.
singing voice, but it is a good indication of what your singing voice will be like. So
Yeah,
I have this like instinctive thing. I can almost always tell when someone's putting on a voice versus singing with their actual voice.
yeah.
And I think
When
that's
they
fine.
imitate singers,
Yeah,
it's a
exactly. Which I think is okay if you're doing it on purpose and you're trying to play
yeah,
a part.
yeah,
Um, but if that's your default go-to, then you're doing something wrong. So it's like you need
yeah.
to find your voice first, and then you can start doing different tones and colors and sounding different if you want to. But find your voice first.
And that's kind of the main job of a vocal coach, to listen to something and analyzing it and try to, I mean, I'm 100% sure you have the same, but when you hear a voice, you feel it in your own body and your own mind and vocal. You can, when you hear someone, oh God, or when you hear like a great vibrato, you can feel in your own throat, oh, it's like this,
Yeah,
So, and so that ability to hear and feel and then explain, I think that's the most essential part of
yeah,
being a vocal coach. And like you described, when you listening to a speaking voice or listening to a new student sing a couple of songs, I sometimes joke and say that I can't see into the future, but I can hear into the future. I can hear what this will be like
right.
in a month or six
Yeah,
months or whatever.
yeah, for sure. As long as someone is willing to put in the work, of course,
Yeah.
because like you said, the importance of a vocal coach is to be there and listen and basically comment on it and just be like, hey, this is what I think. Please take my word for it. Um, but I'm not here to do the work for you. You have to do it on yourself. So like, um, I don't like it, for example, when I have students and like we'll do lesson after lesson and there's no progress. It's like you're not practicing at home. It's not because you're not good enough, you're not taking the time to practice. So like I give tools to people and then what you choose to do with them is on you. If you're not sounding better 6 months from now, that's not my fault. It's not because I gave you bad guidance or anything like that. It's just because you didn't put in the work.
And
Um,
also, when I was new, like 12 years ago, when I started to teach, those moments made me feel like a bad teacher until I realized,
yeah.
like, no, it's not only me. Maybe I can change how I inspire or whatever, or I can teach the student how to practice. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if you go to the physiotherapist with a bad knee and you get some exercises and you come back after a month and well, I haven't done the exercises. Well,
Yeah,
no wonder you're
exactly.
still having pain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. So, one last thing. We talked about
Mhm.
the best thing about your voice. Not the worst thing, but what would you like to improve with your voice? Or what would you like to be better at?
Mm, I don't know. I mean, the cliche response is obviously, I would like to be better at everything that I'm already doing, right?
Yeah,
Um, I really don't know. Like,
it's a hard
I,
question.
I mean, yes, it is hard. Uh, because I feel like everything that I care about with vocals, I'm already doing it. There's not at this point in my life, maybe if you asked me 5 years ago, I'd be like, I want to learn how to do this vocal technique. Um,
Yeah,
I don't think there's any vocal techniques out there that I care about that I haven't attempted.
yeah,
So I'm already kind of doing everything that I want to do. Obviously, it can always be better. I think that's one thing also that I take pride in, just like the evolution of my voice. If I go and listen to myself just like 2 years ago, not even 5 years ago, I almost want to cry. Not because it's not, well, I think it's not good, but whatever. That's
Yeah.
just me being hard on myself.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know if there's a worst thing about my voice, I think, or anyone's voice really. I mean, a voice is a voice, and you learn to live with what you have and make it better. Um, I don't know. I would, if I had to like make a general comment, like the worst thing about a voice is maybe its adaptability to something. So like, let's say for example, I have like 3 or 4 octaves and I can do 10 different vocal techniques. I'm never, and no one's ever going to be able to do that all within the same recording session because your voice adapts to what it's doing. So if you're constantly singing high notes, like belting like power metal highs,
Yeah.
the next second if you try to do a really low note, it's not going to happen. Because your voice adapts to where it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that could be considered a negative in that here I am, I have all these tools, but I can't use them all at the same time because my voice adapts to where it is. And you can do your
Mhm.
best to kind of do as much as you can possibly do by switching around and doing different things,
Yeah.
but it's not always going to be at the 100% level. You're going to be at like 80 to 90%.
Yeah.
So maybe that, if I had to answer.
Yeah. I know it's a stupid and hard question, but I mean, you have when you do stuff like both the Nightmare Before Christmas and Queen and the super fast, almost rap, harsh stuff from Amarante, what would be your next like? Ooh, I want to do. I want to conquer this band or this song or whatever, because your bar is pretty high. So I mean, do you have?
Okay,
So
well, okay. I think a lot of
what would
people.
raising the
Mhm.
bar be like?
So I guess okay, so I think maybe it's stuff that I already know I can do, and maybe just the world doesn't know that I can do it.
Yeah.
So, for example, a lot of people are surprised when I tell them that I actually have a lot of experience in power metal stuff. A lot of
Yeah.
people are like, I wouldn't expect you to listen to power metal, but truth is, like, I had a power metal phase where that was all I was listening to. And I have a bunch of like underground bands that I love that most people don't even know about. And of course, they're a heavy influence to my voice. So I would probably do some more power metal covers because people don't know that. Um, like we've said this as a joke, to cover Painkiller from Judas Priest. I
Yeah.
might do that song. I don't know. It's not hard for me. That's what's funny. It's not even hard.
Yeah.
Because I'm a girl. That's another thing that people fail to realize sometimes. They're like, "Oh my God, how can you sing so high?" It's like, well, I'm a girl.
Yeah.
So it's like, can you please be impressed by my low notes because that didn't come naturally. That's something I worked towards. But
Yeah.
anyway, um, so I would do some more of that, and then probably even more rap scream stuff, or even just clean rapping. Um, because I think that's something relatively new in my attempts, I guess. But it's something that I do at home here all the time. So like you talked about like the boom song, for example.
Yeah.
It isn't screaming. It just really is essentially rapping, you
Yeah.
know. It
Yes.
is rapping and then it just has distortion on it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, because it resembles, some. It's not a genre I know a lot about, but really like hardcore rap, hip hop rap, is essentially the same sound. It's just the
Oh,
context is very
yeah.
different, and
Yeah.
maybe the lyrical content I wouldn't really know, but yeah.
It is written in a way like a rapper would, you know, like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
braggadocio style, like I'm the
Yeah.
best, I'm the shit,
And the
you
click,
know.
click, click
Uh,
to the.
yeah. But no, it is clean cut like a rap flow. And a lot of hardcore music has this, which is why I
Yeah.
find it hilarious when like metal musicians are like, rap and hip hop sucks, you know, you need to listen to screams. And I'm like, that's exactly what they're doing, except it has distortion on it, you know,
Yeah.
but it's the exact same thing. So it's like saying, I don't like chicken, but I love chicken nuggets. Uh, you know,
Yeah. Because
um,
essentially what we're doing is we're I mean, whether it's a metal song or a rap song or uh, opera or whatever, you know, it's lyrics, rhythm, and melody. I
mhm,
mean, you have to say the right word at the right pitch at the right time,
yeah, yeah,
and or with sound. If we add another one, but you know, so and we're making sounds in
yeah,
in in a pattern, and
yeah,
you can pick out, you know, the Nessun Dorma high C stuff. I mean, it's essentially the same thing you do when you sing Angra.
mhm,
I mean, there are also context that differs, and there are some sound difference, but you know, it's sound.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, and I think it's funny because I am a super technical singer. I'm not going to lie about
Mm.
that. But I think because I am self-taught in a lot of stuff, I'm just kind of like, whatever. But of course it matters. Technique matters. Um, but I think emotion, or this thing that people call emotion, they're like, what's emotion? That's also part of technique as well.
Yeah,
Um, but I think a lot of people don't take the time to pay attention to like other aspects aside from the notes and the like how low can you scream or how high
yeah,
can you sing, stuff like that. It's like how you're hitting the note. Like it doesn't matter if I can hit a high C or not. If it sounds like garbage, what's the point? If it sounds like
yeah,
a cat screeching, what's the
yeah,
point of hitting that note, you know? Um, and then when it comes to screaming and rapping, to go back to that, I think inflection and attitude is the most important thing.
yeah,
Um, so like to go back to the Amaranth song, when I was practicing that song, the reason it became really easy for me at the end was because I learned the lyrics by heart, so I didn't have to look at them. So that you remove that out of the equation and you can just do it.
yeah,
Um, and then B, I practiced it in a rapping voice. So
yeah,
like when I was looking at it, I wasn't just going like, hold up, let me take my shades off. You know, I didn't do that. Like that boring thing. You know,
yeah,
it's like, no, you gotta go, hold up, let me put my shades on. You know, like
yeah,
pretend like you're rapping it. And then when you put the scream tone on it, it's
yeah,
gonna be there. It's gonna sound
yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
And that's mostly I sometimes, you know, when I practice high stuff, you know, I mostly practice it like this, you know. You know, just to get things, you know, I have the lyrics right, the melody and the rhythm, and then whenever I just crank it up, it's exactly
Yeah.
like you say, it's there.
Yeah.
It's just same note, same thing, just another sound and another attitude.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's a really important thing about singing or screaming that
Yeah,
not a lot of people realize, that the
yeah,
attitude and the inflection is where it's at. It's not the actual note itself.
yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe that kind of wraps it up. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
for
I
this.
tried my best to look at the comments, but they're just like
Me
going
too,
by and
but you know,
yeah.
when you start talking, you know, doing two things at the same time, it's really hard. But we could encourage people to ask questions again, and maybe we can answer them at another time, or we will do a follow up in a year and see how things are going, or you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but anyways, I would like to thank you for doing this. It was really interesting, and
Yeah.
I'm glad I got the chance to ask some of my own questions too. And I hope that the people who sent their some of the questions that they feel like we kind of dipped our toes into some of the topics anyway. But I guess either we could stop now or we could speak for like 4 hours. But then I would fall asleep. So I guess we'll cut it here. So
Yeah,
once
no,
again,
yeah. We did answer a lot of the questions, and I think the stuff that we didn't answer, it's just stuff that you can't answer, like the number one, how do you scream? I can't
oh
just
yeah,
tell you that, you know.
yeah, we kind of joked about that. That's there's a super secret special technique that no one gets to know unless they're told to say them, and we don't want to give away that in this live
Yeah,
stream. So no, but yeah, I not to get started again, but I also had students that I felt like they they didn't trust me, like they wanted me to give the secret key of singing,
yeah.
and and they were like pissed off because I didn't tell them, and
It's, I will say this before we go. The thing with
yeah,
singing or screaming or whatever, you don't know when you're going to have a breakthrough moment. You could spend 6 months or a year trying something and it's just not happening. And then one day you wake up and suddenly it's there.
yeah,
It's not like piano or guitar where you can see
no,
the notes and you're making steady progress and you know that something's becoming easier. It's really about having something click in your mind. And I
yeah,
know I've had moments where I could not get something. Like not everything comes naturally and easily.
yeah,
And one of my biggest, just to share this before we go, one of my biggest things was singing powerfully in my high notes, basically unlocking like my mixed voice. I could not do it because I think my influences were like all these like Disney songs and like everything needs to sound like this.
yeah,
And I was like, how, and
yeah,
especially from my time in opera singing where just to,
yeah,
to mention this too, because it's something I see all the time and it kind of pisses me off. And I want to see what you have to say about this. So I'm derailing, but a lot of people out there like to categorize voices and say, so like you're a soprano or a mezzo or an alto or whatever. Do you feel like that's something like obvious that people just you can tell by hearing someone what they are?
I mean, it's more of a thing in the classical world, I guess, because the tradition is like this part is for high dramatic baritone, and then there's the entire, or this is for Wagnerian tenor, and that if you get the stamp early in your career that you're a dramatic soprano, then you can
Mhm.
never go to you can never do an alto part because you are, it's like a part of your identity. So
Right.
I mostly see this in classical music where you kind of you get into a, I don't know how to put it, but you get it. They put you in a box with other people who sound like you,
Mhm.
and don't walk outside the box, please, because you're there for
Right.
a reason. And then I
Yeah.
I meet amazing singers all the time, students, both like in real life and online, and you know there are so many things you can do with your voice if you just put your mind to it. So I mean, in the choir we have, yes, there are tenors and there are basses, but or sopranos or altos, but mostly, if I generalize, the sopranos are the ones who sing, who have been singing longer, and they have better control of their voice. It's not that they are higher. The altos can be equally high, but they don't have the control or the musicality. Sorry, altos. Uh, I'm
Okay.
not talking professional choirs now. I'm talking,
Yeah.
beginner choir.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so no, I don't. When I get a student, I never categorize.
Of course. I don't do that either. I find it funny because I've seen a few like mentions analyzing my voice and stuff like that. And for some reason, a lot of people say that I'm a mezzo soprano, and their justification for that is because I can hit low notes with ease. And I'm like, okay, so is my range an indication of that? Because the truth is, I'm actually not. In my time in the classical world, I was classified as a lyrical soprano. Hitting high notes was never an issue for me. So the only
No.
reason I can hit low notes is because I tried and I made that my main focus. So that's something that I see all the time, and I'm like, what is it that people are hearing that is making them assume that this is what I am, you know?
Yeah, and does it matter? I mean, for those people, I mean, what can this information, this stamp of mezzo-sopranoism do? How does this help anyone?
I don't know.
Unless
Yeah,
unless you were aiming for being a professional opera singer. I
exactly.
mean,
Yeah.
then it would have some. Then you could use
Why?
that information. But
Yeah.
you know, I've also been to like when I started out at the Academy of Music, there was like this guru teacher who listened to all the new students,
Yeah.
and I think I was like a high dramatic baritone, you know, the guy who would never get a part in an opera. Because you're not a true baritone, and you're not a tenor, and you're not a bass. So yeah, well, sorry, David. Maybe you can sing some Schubert.
I mean, to be fair, I think the middle voices, so like the mezzos and the baritones, if I had to classify, I would say kind of have the best of both worlds because you can do the
Yeah,
lows and the highs. But I think like I said, your voice adapts.
yeah,
When I was singing my soprano years, I couldn't go below like a G, what is it, a
yeah,
G3 or something?
yeah.
Well, I could, but my voice would die out, you know, and sound like this. And
Ah,
yeah, I was just really obsessed with low notes, and I gained so many low notes and like full low notes because of that. So I think it's just like a matter of like you practice and you get what you want. Now, obviously, that has a ceiling, I want to say, because like
yeah,
I'm a girl, so I'm obviously not
yeah.
ever
There,
gonna be able to, you know,
yeah. But
you have,
I think that's kind of a thing for. I'm not gonna say successful, but you know, uh, good singers. It's like, okay, I can't do this, but I want to be able to do it. You know, I'm I have always also been obsessed with stuff I can't do. Like the guy from Crash Test Dummies. I take this example of, you know, once there was this kid who, you know, I couldn't do that. It was like freak
yeah,
pissing me off. So I practice, and then you know I hear Kiske doing all this. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I need to learn. So
yeah,
I that grit. We were talking about the emotion and all the stuff, but I mean the grit and the will to improve. Uh, find that in yourself if you want to. You mean I mean you need to actually want to improve and
of course.
dare to suck a bit when you try
Oh my
first.
goodness, yes. And you have to not be afraid to be a little bit off pitch too when you're
Yeah,
experimenting with vocal stuff. Like
yeah,
being a person that I think that was my biggest obstacle too, being someone that's like naturally on pitch. When I would
yeah,
go for those high notes, I would always go for the safe way. So I would go for like a ah, because I'm like, that's the guaranteed way I can hit that note. So when I started telling myself, don't be afraid to be a little pitchy, I discovered my mixed voice and kind of just going like
yeah,
ah, instead of
yeah,
ah. It's, but it took me a while. I like I'm not gonna lie. Like I was like
yeah.
why can't I be powerful in my high notes? And
Yeah.
it
And
was yeah.
we're
Go ahead.
never gonna stop. But I
Yes.
when my students they have and they want to take the note in a powerful way, and they say it's too high. No, it's not too high. You just took the note. You just sang it. You just sang the I don't know what note. Ah! It's just a matter of
Mhm.
sound. It's not a matter of pitch. You
Exactly.
have the note. You have the range. You have one octave more. It's not
Hmm.
too high for you. you just can't do the sound because you haven't practiced.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, sorry about that
No,
parentheses.
no. We
It's
need to, yeah. We'll do a
um
follow-up eventually.
sure.
Uh,
Just take the time to thank everyone for checking in. And I think you
yes,
said this
thanks.
is being recorded, so you're gonna put it up afterwards
Yeah,
so people can
words.
check it out.
Of course.
It's cool. It's super interesting to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
So I hope it
I'm
helps.
glad to have the time to really talk about singing.
Yeah, it's great. And it's great
Um,
to exchange, ideas and views with
yeah.
other people too, because there's not one way to do things, and everyone
I
has
wish
their
I wish we could have disagreed a bit more, have a more heatful discussion, but maybe we'll find some topics next time.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Thank you for doing it. Bye bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.